Hi everyone, I'm back already. I know I just made a video about making too many videos and now I'm making another video. I'm contradicting myself. This is a video response to the Happy Console Gamer. If you don't know who the Happy Console Gamer is, he's a game reviewer, but he's kind of a little bit different from most game reviewers because rather than just reviewing the game and just talking about it, he kind of talks about the memories he had as a kid playing these games, and there's sort of a nostalgic trip down memories. I've got memories on the brain. It's a nostalgic trip down memory lane where he talks about his experiences with those games as a kid, and especially for people like myself of a certain vintage. We do have these memories of certain consoles, certain games when we were kids, when video gaming was really just sort of becoming a big thing. And I think that this video that the Happy Console Gamer's just done is a great example of it. So I would definitely recommend checking out his videos, because it's kind of, like I've talked about this with Long Boy's post 1975. Really, you can listen to someone talk about anything, or you can watch anyone's videos when they are passionate about what they're talking about. If there's a passion there, then even if it's something that you're maybe not entirely interested in, you get sort of sucked in and you become interested in it because of that person's passion. It kind of rubs off on you a little bit. And I think that Happy Console Gamer's definitely a guy that does that, just as he's got such a passion for the games, and there's nothing negative about his videos. They're all just really positive, and he goes through like entire game series, and it really revolves around the fact that he's just got a phenomenal collection as well. He's a collector, and so you get to see all these different games as well. But really most of the time it's him in front of a camera, and sometimes his friend Rob, who's really good as well. So the most recent video that he did is a video on the Megadrive, or should I say the Genesis. In fact, it was called Genesis Rocks. I'm from the United Kingdom. I know it as the Sega Megadrive, so I'm going to call it the Sega Megadrive for the rest of this video. But if you're not from Britain, then you'll know what I'm talking about, the Genesis. And it was really about his experiences with the console and the games that he got when he was a kid. It was a great video. Again, it was another great trip down memory lane, not mammary lane. For me, the Sega Megadrive was a really important console, and the Happy Console Gamer did say that we were to make responses to this video about our experiences with that console. And really, I mean, I'm an ardent gamer, but I'm more a retro gamer than a sort of contemporary gamer. I do still game and I do still play modern games, but really I find myself a lot of time playing older stuff. I don't know if that's just down to nostalgia, but I just find that the games are better, at least in my opinion. So I had some interesting experiences with the Sega Mega Drive. At least they're interesting to me, because the funny thing is I didn't actually have one, but I was a Sega guy, because if you lived in Britain at that time, and I'm sure this was the case in other places as well, you were either a Sega kid or a Nintendo kid, and I was very much a Sega kid. I had a blue Sega hat that I used to walk about with. When I think about it, it was ridiculous. I remember walking around with this cap on, this Sega cap on, even when I got paint on it. I don't know how I got paint on it, but I did, and I still walked around with this cap because I loved it that much. Little aside. The thing with Sega was that for me, they were like my team, you know, that was my team. I remember things in school, like in the playground, where people were like shouting about Nintendo and other people were shouting about Sega. Really geeky stuff here, but that's what happened. And I had a Sega Master System. That was the Sega machine I had, and that's why I was kind of a Sega guy. And I'd also had, or I did have, like an Atari ST and a ZX Spectrum, and then ended up with a PC. And you know, I did a video that was like a history of history of my gaming experiences. So you can check that out if you want to see the consoles that I owned and stuff like that. But I didn't actually get to have a Sega Mega Drive, but I did love the Sega Master System. Now the weird thing is that I also did love, like, I love the Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I love the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I loved the SNES as well, but I was still very much a Sega guy, and I didn't really want to admit that they were great consoles in a lot of ways. But now I love those consoles. but my main experience with the Sega Mega Drive was through other people. It was like, you know, you go to like your friend's house and they would have a console that you really loved, you know, or they would have a toy that you really loved, and you would go and get, you know, and experience it, and you really wanted to have it. Well, that was kind of the thing with me and the Sega Mega Drive, and I had a few friends that had them, and especially there was someone who lived, it was my brother's friend who lived across the road from us, and my brother was about 5 years older than me, and him and his friend, you know, they would set the Mega Drive up in the house, and we would sit and play it. They would let me play sometimes, and when they did, I was just like, this is the most amazing thing ever, hanging out with your older brother and his mates and playing video games together. And what I always loved about that time was playing cooperative games. Like, I did love the fact that we used to do like take turns, you know, play a level and the next person plays the level, and we'd try to complete games that way. But I loved cooperative games, and the first game that jumps to mind instantly is Toe Jam and Earl, which is a kind of isometric, almost like adventure game, where it borrowed heavily from like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Wayne's World and things of that sort of era in terms of the humour. And I loved that game. It was very funny, but what was great about it is you could control the two characters at the same time on the screen, and you could try to work together to complete levels, and I just absolutely loved that. Absolutely loved it. It was a great game. And what else was there? Was Alien Storm, which I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but it was like a sort of bog standard like sort of beat 'em up, I suppose you would call it, and again, I really liked that game. And the thing I loved about Alien Storm was that you had levels which were very much like kind of Streets of Rage and Double Dragon and games like that, but then there'd be other levels which would be in a first person perspective and would almost be like a Operation Wolf, with the aliens jumping at you and you shooting them and trying to get extra ammo and stuff like that. I loved that game as well. And there was a strange mode, I think, on it where like you would square off against, it was almost like a tournament where you would square off against different aliens in each round. But anyway, the whole game I absolutely loved it. I really did love it. And obviously there's the Sonic games, who a lot of people love. I do like Sonic and I have a lot of fond memories playing it, but when I play it now, I don't get as much out of it as I do like playing Mario. You know, Mario's like the greatest thing ever, but the Sonic games just didn't have as much for me at the time. The speed on them was amazing, but I remember the one I did really enjoy was Sonic 2, because there was like a sort of piggyback 2-player mode where you could play as Tails. I really enjoyed that, because again it was like this, you know, 2-player option that you would get. And I've already mentioned Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage as well, just like one of the best beat 'em ups ever. I still play it to this day. The first 3 games I still play. Again, it was cooperative, so I loved that we got to play at the same time, and I loved the fact that you had like these special moves where like one of them, the screen would like scroll right back to the start of the level, and a police car would pull up and they would shoot like a bazooka out, and then it would scroll back to where you were and kill all the enemies and stuff like that. I loved all of that. Great beat 'em up. One game I really loved was Road Rash. Road Rash 1 and 2, and the cooperative element, the split screen. If you don't know what Road Rash is, it was a motorbike racing game, but you were taking part in these illegal races throughout like urban areas and through the countryside, and the police would try and catch you, and you would try to obviously beat the other cyclists, and you would win money, and you could buy new bikes to like sort of go faster. I'm really not very descriptive at this time. But what was great about Road Rash was that it was also kind of like a fighter as well. You could like go alongside other motorbikers, and you could punch them off the bike, or you could get weapons as well, like bats and chains, and it was great, really great. And what was brilliant about it is you play through the game with someone else, trying to just amass as much money as possible and seeing how far you could like how quickly you could get to like the more expensive bikes and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me in some ways of like Rock and Roll Racing on the SNES, where you could just amass money and sort of upgrade a little bit in terms of buying new bikes. But yeah, Road Rash is just an absolutely fantastic game. One of the games that the Happy Console Gamer mentioned was Golden Axe, and I have to say Golden Axe is one of my all-time favourite games on the arcade, on the Sega Megadrive. I actually made a video on another account years ago about the Master System version, which I love, and that's the version that I had, you know, and it was just a fantastic conversion for an 8-bit machine. I just loved Golden Axe on the Master System, but the problem was you didn't have a 2-player option, whereas in the Mega Drive version you did have a 2-player option, and it was a beat 'em up, but it was a fantasy orientated beat 'em up, so you could go like a dwarf or a female warrior or a male warrior, and you had magic and special moves and things like that, and you were fighting orcs and skeletons. It was the skeletons that really got me. I remember looking at different magazines and seeing screenshots, and it was the skeletons, and it looked just like one of my favourite films when I was a kid was Jason and the Argonauts, and it looked like the skeletons from that film, and I'm sure that's what they were based on. That was one thing which I did love at the time, was just looking through game magazines, and that sounded almost like gay magazines. Looking through gaming magazines, nothing wrong with that. Looking through gaming magazines and seeing the screenshots of games which were going to come out. And another game that the Happy Console Gamer mentioned was Forgotten Worlds. I loved that game, but it was a Spectrum version that I played. I had the ZX Spectrum. I don't know if he actually has a ZX Spectrum, but he really should, because it's a fantastic system. And that's really all I can think of. I'm sure as soon as I upload this video I'll think of loads of other games on the Sega Mega Drive that I used to play, and I'll be kicking myself because I didn't mention them. But I had some great experiences with it, and I remember a couple of times when my brother's friend actually left the console overnight, and me and my brother stayed up really late just playing through those games, and just great memories, great times. And you know, the 16-bit era was really special. I think a lot of what we understand about home gameplay in terms of video games was really perfected in that era. Great console, the Sega Mega Drive, fantastic. Anyway, so what are your memories of the Sega Mega Drive? Do you have any memories of it? Were you more of a Nintendo person, or did you love Sega? And what were some of your favourite games on the system? I will be back soon, hopefully with a scripted video, because they're better. But I'll be back soon, and I'll speak to you all soon. That's me saying soon far too much or often. It's too late. Good night.